Have you ever stood in prayer and felt like your words were only wind? This is the story of a man whose daily prayers were punctual and perfect on the outside, but hollow on the inside. What changed everything for him was a single conversation and the simple shift in how he approached sujood and dua. Stay with me. By the end, you'll understand a practical way to bring your heart back into salah.
Ibrahim prayed the 5 prayers every day. On paper, nothing was missing. He prayed on time, he dressed according to Islamic guidelines, and he recited the Qur'an regularly. Yet, for months, something gnawed at him. When he stood for salah, bowed and placed his forehead on the prayer mat, his chest felt oddly vacant. The motions were there, the connection was not. He would finish and walk away with the same quiet ache. Why does my prayer feel like an empty routine? Ibrahim was 30, a school teacher by trade. Calm, deliberate, respected by his students. His life looked ordered. Work, family, mosque, Qur'an. Still, whenever he closed his eyes in prayer, he sensed a gulf between the words on his lips and the state of his heart. He remembered a saying he had once heard: "The first thing to be judged on the day of judgment is your salah." The memory of that line pressed on him like a weight. If the first thing to be accounted for is the prayer, and if his prayer felt lifeless, what did that mean for his standing before Allah? One evening, after a family meal, Ibrahim lingered in the living room. The family had finished praying together and dispersed, but Ibrahim remained seated on his prayer mat, staring at the carpet as if he were trying to spot a missing piece of himself. His grandfather, noticing Ibrahim's silence, walked over and sat beside him. The old man had the habit of reading the Qur'an aloud in his study each night, and he had a gentle way of asking questions that made people speak their truth. He put a hand on Ibrahim's shoulder and said softly, "You look burdened, son. Tell me what's on your heart." Ibrahim exhaled and admitted, "I do everything I'm supposed to, but when I pray, it's like my heart isn't there. I speak the words, but I don't feel Allah near. I feel like I'm just checking boxes." His grandfather gave a small, knowing smile. "I once knew a man who sat in our Qur'an circle," he began. His name was Saleh. He was not from an educated background. He didn't speak Arabic well, and he had no formal classes in fiqh. Yet, whenever he stood to pray, he wept. Not out of sorrow at the world, but from a raw, simple yearning. I asked him once, "Why do you cry when you pray?" He told me something that changed the way I understood prayer. Ibrahim leaned forward. The grandfather continued. Saleh said, "When I stand in prayer, I picture myself alone in a tiny boat on a vast, stormy sea. The sky is dark, waves crash all around, I cannot see land, and there's nothing to hold on to. In that terrifying moment, I can do only one thing: call for help. So I call on Allah. The prayer is the rope I throw, the lifeline that keeps me afloat." Ibrahim felt the words like a hand reaching into him. His throat tightened. "You don't need scholarship to meet your Lord," his grandfather added. "You only need to bring the heart you have." That night, Ibrahim wept, not from despair, but from a stirring of hope. He decided to change his approach. He began preparing himself before each prayer in small, intentional ways. Ablution, once hurried between tasks, became a deliberate act.
He performed wudu with patience, feeling the cool water as a cleansing, not only of the body, but of distraction. He would sit a moment before beginning, closing his eyes and reminding himself, I am about to stand before the one who fashioned me. Those seconds became important. He also stopped rushing through the recitation. Instead of hurrying over familiar verses, he learned the meanings a little at a time. He lingered on a single ayah until its message registered in his chest. When he said, "All praise is for Allah, Lord of the worlds," he paused to sense gratitude, to picture the mercy and order that surround him. The words were no longer automatic. They were ladders he climbed with intention. Ibrahim diversified his supplications. Rather than repeating the same set of phrases, he spoke from his heart, in his own language, with the vulnerability of a child asking a parent for comfort. He asked for guidance for his students, for patience in his household, for forgiveness for mistakes he could barely admit aloud. Prayer began to feel like conversation instead of a checklist. He also learned to vary what he recited in the Salah. Instead of always choosing the same surahs out of habit, he would pick short chapters that resonated with the moment, or sometimes shorter du'as that expressed his need. The ritual became less of a machine and more of a living space where he could bring his humanity. One night, during the last third of the night, Ibrahim woke and went to perform tahajjud. The house was still. His city slept. The streetlights dimmed, and the air felt clean in a way that daytime never is. As he bowed and then prostrated, something he had not felt in months arrived. Presence. It was not dramatic, no visions, no loud revelation, but a quiet recognition, as if his trembling had been noticed. Tears quietly streamed down his face. They were not tears of gloom, they were tears of relief, of being heard. He found himself making dua from the place of someone who knows he is seen. The emptiness that used to hover at the edges of his prayer receded. He realized that his past feelings of alienation were not a final verdict. They were an invitation. His heart had been knocking, asking to return, and prayer had become the doorway.
If your salah feels empty, it doesn't immediately mean failure. Often, it means there's a part of the heart yearning to come back. Take small, practical steps. Slow your wudu. Make a quiet intention before you stand. Learn the meaning of one ayah at a time, and allow your supplication to be honest and unscripted. Remember the words he once feared. The first thing to be judged on the day of judgment is your salah. Let that awareness guide you, not terrify you. And hold on to another guiding phrase he heard in his community. Pray as if it's your farewell prayer. Let that attitude bring depth and urgency to your devotion. Over time, Ibrahim's prayers were not perfect every day. He relapsed into distraction sometimes. But he learned to meet that with compassion rather than condemnation. He would pause, breathe, and return to the posture of a servant, humble, hopeful, and honest. The ritual of salah became, increasingly, his refuge rather than a duty. If you found some benefit in this reflection, subscribe so you don't miss future videos about the Quran and the Sunnah.
Your comments help us understand which topics to explore more deeply. If this story moved you, leave a thought below. Your experience might help someone else who feels alone in their struggle.
May Allah make our prayers a source of comfort, and may He accept from us with mercy. Ameen.